Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the first episode of 2023. This is episode 235. And not only do we have an awesome topic to dive into in this one, but I have an even more awesomer guest. Already making words up in the new year. This is Kady Sandel, who is a business coach for graphic designers, although you'll also find out that she helps a lot of web designers as well. She is the entrepreneur behind Inventive Academy, which you can check out at inventiveacademy.com. And she's very active on Instagram. I recommend giving her a follow. We'll, of course, have her profile linked in the show notes. But in this episode, I wanted to dive into how she built her graphic design business by getting the best clients for her. And I had a hard time figuring out the perfect title for this episode because we really dove into a wide range of options for getting really good clients and different ways to do that. So in this episode, we talk about everything from networking, we talk about niching, we talk about how to position yourself to charge higher amounts with the ideal clients that you want to attract. We also talk about cold emailing and cold emailing strategies that work. And I had to pause there because that took me by surprise when we had this conversation. And Kady was just such a great person to talk to and had such a fresh and interesting perspective on kind of these counterintuitive approaches to getting really good clients. So I can't wait to hear how this one helps you out. I would love to start the year off with hearing from you and how this episode impacts you in your business. You can drop us a comment at joshhall.co/235. That is the podcast episode page for this episode. I would love to hear from you. And I can't wait for you to meet Kady because she is the real deal. She is awesome. She's also, I totally meant to mention, she's the host of the Profitable Designer podcast. So a few links I'm going to recommend you check out, which is why I recommend you go to joshhall.co/235 to leave a comment and to check out Kady and see what she has to offer. And for right now, here is our conversation on everything and anything about how to get really good clients and all the different ways you can do that through networking, niching, cold emailing, and all these different strategies. Let's have some fun. Here we go. Kady, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking some time and chatting. Just before we went live, I feel like already we're super aligned in a lot of areas. So I can't wait to chat with you for a little while here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can't wait to chat with you either.
We have similar businesses in the way of we're both like mentors to designers and creatives. It looks like you focus a large percentage of your teachings for like graphic designers, but it sounds like you also help branding designers and web designers as well. I have to ask you, I've been asking everyone on this podcast this question, which is when somebody asks you what you do, what do you tell them?
Oh my God. I feel like I can go on and on about what I do, but basically I am the CEO and brand strategist, creative director at Inventive Studio, which is my branding and design agency. We are located in Austin, Texas, but my accent is coming from Serbia. We work with clients worldwide, and I am also the founder of Inventive Academy, which is an online platform for graphic, brand, and web designers where we help them how to start and grow their own businesses. I also have a podcast called The Profitable Graphic Designer, and I'm an author. I published a book. So, I feel like I can really go on and on. It's really hard to say in one sentence or like shorter, what is that we do as entrepreneurs? But it depends, sometimes when I go for a networking event, then I would really like shorten that kind of like pitch. If I go for, let's say, a CPG event, I will talk about I am a graphic designer specializing in packaging design or whatnot, so
Gotcha.
I change it a little bit depending on who I talk to.
Depends on the room you're in, right? Depending on what answer they get. Yeah, that seems to be the best way to go. The reason I ask that is so many online entrepreneurs and a lot of folks listening do so many different things. It is hard to succinctly say like, well, yeah, what do I do? Or do I say my title? Do I say my services? So I think that's a good rule of thumb, just, depending on the eye, or maybe just plan out like these are the main three types of people I usually encounter. Those are the answers I'm going to dish out. And I was going to ask you about your accent. It's funny you mentioned that because I'm a tennis fan and I'm hearing like Novak Djokovic, his accent, I was like, I feel like you sound like you're in somewhere in that area. So I'm kind of curious, what was you're in Austin, Texas now. How long have you been there? Were you overseas, in your childhood? What did that look like?
Yeah. So when I was 15, I started a high school for like a graphic design. So in Serbia, we don't have a high school that's just like general high school. You have to specialize in something. You have to pick your own thing. So it's kind of like, how in America, like people choose their college, and that's how we have to choose like early on when we are just 15. So that's when I started going for graphic design high school in Serbia. After that, I finished the Academy of Arts for graphic design as well in Serbia. And then right after that, I got a job in Las Vegas. Actually, that was, it was like part of the program, work and travel program. That's for 5 months. So 4 months, you get like work visa. And then 5th month, you can travel around America and then you go back to Serbia. So that's when I first got to America and I was in Las Vegas. I actually had 2 job offers. One was in Las Vegas and one was somewhere in North Dakota. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to Vegas.
Going to Vegas. Nothing against North Dakota, but
exactly. I mean, I didn't know anything I didn't know much about Vegas, but I definitely didn't know anything about North Dakota. And I thought that it would be easier for me to, get into, knowing more people and really like getting into the culture of America in Las Vegas, even though we could talk more about it, but
that's definitely it's definitely not how things are in Ohio. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. And so I got to Vegas and I had a job there for those 4 months. And then after that, I traveled a little bit and back to Serbia. And that's when I was like, well, I feel like I'm going to go back, like maybe for another 5 months. So I went back to Vegas because I already met a lot of people. I knew exactly where I would stay at, what kind of job I would look for, and so on. So in Vegas, I got hired by one science and printing company as a graphic designer. So I stayed, I applied for a visa extension, another visa extension, and so on. And then eventually I met my husband. And then because he had a job in Denver, I had to, we had to figure things out. Either he's going to quit his job or I'm going to quit my job and maybe start something else or find a different job in Denver. So that's when I decided to start freelancing full time. Moved to Denver, started freelancing, met a lot of people, started growing my design business. And after I was frozen in Denver, I decided to move somewhere where it's like a little bit nicer. If you ask me, I love the weather that's like 100 degrees. Like that's totally me. And so we both decided to move to Austin, Texas. So we've been here now for about 5 years. And the total of how long I've been in America is like 9 or 10.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, also a great story and case study of like moving around to different locations, but getting clients and making relationships and networking. I imagine a lot of it was online now. Is that fair to say? Like, did you have a lot of in-person networking and a lot of in-person relationships through Vegas and stuff, but then did you start to do more online stuff as you were moving around? Is that kind of how that worked?
So it's kind of like a combination of both. I actually started on Craigslist. So I was posting on Craigslist.
Same here.
Yeah, so I was posting on Craigslist. Oh my God, that was, before Instagram was about business, before TikTok even existed and all that. So I was posting on Craigslist, some days even like 20 posts a day.
Is it? Do you know what it's like now? It's so funny. My wife and I were just talking about this because I don't think she knew that I had bid out a couple jobs on Craigslist. Like, I mean, this was like 2009. Or 2010, maybe early 2010. And back then it was just literally like a HTML text directory. It wasn't, I have no idea what it looks like now. So when you used it, what year was that? And what did it look like?
I think that it looks very similar. It's just text, like nothing else. Because funny, last year we couldn't find cleaners to help us when we moved into a bigger house, and we just didn't have time, wanted to outsource that, and I couldn't find cleaners. And that's when Craigslist came to my mind, and I was like, you know what? I'll go into gigs, and now we have an amazing house cleaner that I found on Craigslist. So I think that for some service providers, Craigslist can still work.
Yeah, it's so funny. I do wonder if anyone knows. Let us know. Like, drop a comment on the podcast post here, because if anyone's using it, I would love to know about that and do maybe a case study on that. Because I mean, for me, it attracted like 80 or 90% spam, weird type of, or not good fit offers, but I actually did get some good clients from that in the early days. So it was just another directory back then, at least, that definitely helped as I kind of started to reach outside of my personal network.
Yeah, exactly. So Craigslist worked like really well for me. And I actually got connected to one branding agency who was outsourcing to me. So I was their contractor, freelancer, and they were sending me a lot of work. They kept me so busy that at some point I was like, okay, well, it's like I have a 9 to 5, just working for them. But it was amazing. It was really, really great. But then at some point, I feel that, with Instagram, with other social media platforms, like Craigslist just wasn't, or maybe I wasn't on that level anymore. I wanted to get like higher paying clients or better clients. So that's when I realized the power of like in-person networking events. And in-person networking events were like my part-time job. I used to go for 3 to 5 different networking events a week. But also like I am an extrovert. So that's where I get my energy from, like from people. So that was like my hobby, meeting people, going for networking events, chatting with them. Either that's coffee meeting or that's happy hour or that's like really formal meeting where I'm a presenter or whatever it is. Like I loved going for networking events and meeting people and like really like getting to the next level of like my business was meeting people and just like expanding. So, it's awesome. A combination of both like Craigslist and then in person. And then on top of that, when I moved to Austin, I already knew what I need to do. So I was just busy going for networking events.
And what about the online world? What did you start with other than like a listing or a directory like Craigslist? Did you dive into social media pretty quick to make connections or I mean, I know your Instagram is hopping right now. Like when did social media come into the picture for you?
So I think that after I realized that, I'm meeting a lot of people and that was taking like a lot of time, I was focused more on SEO. So we started a blog that's now like a very successful blog where we really talk about like branding and website designs and whatnot, like that my ideal clients are looking for. So I think that, like right now, our focus is really on the blog and also on me getting to know people. Mm-hmm. When it comes to my branding and design agency, we actually never tapped into the social media. But when it comes to my coaching business, where I'm teaching designers how to get to the next level, that's where I'm on Instagram. And my Instagram has, a large followings because I think that creatives are on Instagram all the time. They're trying to get clients. They need help. And that's a visual platform where creatives like to, hang out. So
that's a great point. So and very similar, I didn't use social media barely at all when I ran and built my agency. I had a Facebook that I would occasionally post work on, but it was lackluster at best. But the good news is I didn't need it. And I hope that's empowering to everyone who's daunted by social media. Like you may be there as a creative to connect with others and to get training and to have inspiration and stuff. And you may get clients that way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's where your best clients are going to be. Like I agree. I found my best clients were in some sort of networking or some sort of like business setting, sometimes on social media, but that just wasn't always the case for me. Like, what do you advise your students as far as if they identify an ideal customer for them, what do you advise and what have you seen work on like how to be where they are and identifying like where are they actually hanging out, whether in person or online?
Yeah. So most of the time I really try to explain to them that not just demographic is important, but psychographic of their ideal clients, like who they are, what problems they have, where they're going to look for those solutions. Are they going to Google? Are they going to scroll on Instagram to look for a web designer? I don't think so, especially if they're like higher paying client, like high ticket client. They're like their first thing, when they're looking for a web designer or brand designer, they're going to ask their network. So the more people you know, the better chances of getting those better clients are. And my advice is always to pick 1 or 2 social media platforms. And, like after you know where your clients hang out, after you discover their demographic and psychographic, and then like really nail down like on that one specific or maximum two social media platforms. And for me, that was LinkedIn, because I feel that LinkedIn is very similar to in-person networking event, but it's not in person. Like social media for example, like for Instagram, you can always outsource. You can hire someone who's going to post for you, who's going to write captions, who's going to do all the things, right? But for LinkedIn, it's a bit harder. Yes, you can hire someone who's going to post, but at the end of the day, you don't really give your username and password for your personal LinkedIn to anyone. So it's you that you have to read that private message. So, my advice is always like connect with people and not just like posts where you kind of like speak at them, like talk to them.
Well, and there's a big difference too between social media like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook in a way where there's a lot of entertainment and other avenues of like content, whereas LinkedIn is pretty much just business. I mean, I haven't been on it in years, so I don't have the bandwidth for it. I've been wanting to. I really would love to. I just don't personally have the bandwidth yet, but it's something I've thought about because of the nature of it being more like business focused, like you're there for a purpose. Is that fair to say? Or is there entertainment? Okay.
I don't think there is entertainment. And then it also depends like how you create your LinkedIn. When it comes to my LinkedIn and people that I follow, it's literally all B2B. Mm-hmm. It's everything business to business. And it's really where I build a network of people who offer similar but different types of services to the same target audience. So for example, I connect with a lot of web developers because that's not something, it's not creative to me. So that's not what I want to do. Yeah. So I connect with photographers, videographers, with other creatives who provide different type of service, but we have the same target audience because that's where referrals, happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think this is a really great framework for being in and on the online world, but like intentionally and just realizing, what is different between maybe your network of creatives and colleagues versus ideal clients, where they're hanging out. I agree. I think LinkedIn is definitely an untapped market for most web design. Everyone that I've talked to, as far as in the web design world, who do LinkedIn generally get really good results from it. But it's like anything, you got to commit to it. And I do think you hit an interesting point there, which is that LinkedIn is a little more personal and it's a little more like it's pretty clear that most people on Instagram who have a lot of content going out, whether they're a course creator or service provider, most of them, myself included now, like we have people dishing the content out. We're not actually posting all the posts. However, it is different with a medium like LinkedIn or maybe some other online avenue like a forum or something that is a little more personal. I think it's good to have both. Would you agree? Like, do you think it's good to have a channel that is a little more directed towards getting clients versus just connecting and just enjoying your time instead of always being on business?
Yes, definitely. So for my branding agency, we still post on Instagram. I think we post like 2 posts a week or so. And that's only because people who land to our website, they always click on, like all those like social media channels, like the icons. They would click on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever we have. They still want to see that you're active, that you're around, that you're maybe taking on clients and so on. But like we never post stories on Instagram. You're really not active when it comes to Aventive Studio. Now Aventive Academy it's almost like a different business. Yeah. So, it's, we post. But that's it. It's just so that we are active, that people see that we are out there, that we exist. But LinkedIn is where we pull in like all the best leads.
And for like the strategy for your agency with that, I'm sure you could feel like sometimes like, why are we doing this? Not getting much engagement, or we don't have a huge following. But is it more about just staying top of mind and just having some sort of presence so they can connect with you? Is that kind of the moral of the story, with at least having something?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't post anything. I don't even know what's going on with that profile because I have a social media manager. So, and she would tell me that it takes her like maybe an hour to put all the content together for a month. So, it's like, it's very easy. It's a single post. We don't focus on these like long carousels or reels or anything like that because Instagram is not what we are focused on. So, it's just to post. Just as you mentioned, like to stay on top of the mind. but LinkedIn and our blog is our focus, besides me going for a lot of networking events here in Austin, because Austin is growing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I feel the few people I've talked to from Austin, it sounds so similar to, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and it sounds so similar to what we have here, just on a bigger scale. From what I gather, it sounds like Columbus is kind of like a mini Austin with the amount of tech companies here and booming entrepreneurial scene and everything. So it's really cool. I mean, you and I are fortunate that we are in areas where we can do a lot of in-person networking. And if I were to start a web design agency today, I would potentially just local SEO the heck out of Columbus and just own the Columbus area, Central Ohio area. However, there's so much benefit in having an online network as well and a broad network. And there's different strategies for this. I'm kind of curious, since you came from Serbia, did you have any connections there in your professional and personal networks that translated into your business, or was that just like a different world almost?
No, it's a different world, like completely different. I feel like I always had the goal of like being a freelancer, but I didn't really try that in Serbia. So I think that actually my first try to meet business owners and entrepreneurs and other, freelancers, creatives, and so on was here in the States. So I can't say that I, didn't meet anyone, but I didn't really try to meet anyone there. Also in Serbia, I don't think that we have that many like meetups, and tech industry is not that big of a deal like it's here in Austin. So I think that if I was still in a place where I can't meet a lot of people in person, then I would definitely focus on LinkedIn, because that's, as mentioned, like very, very similar. It's just online. I was
just going to ask you, in a different parallel world, if you were still in Serbia and never came stateside, what would you do? Yeah. Like what would you, so LinkedIn, would you also do would you have a profile on like Fiverr or Upwork or something like that? Or what would you do? Yeah.
I don't think so, because, well, now that I know what I know how hard it is to compete with all other designers, web designers, specifically web designers on Fiverr and Upwork. And even though some people have seen like huge success on all those like third-party platforms, but I think that for the same amount of time and effort that you put into third-party platforms, you can focus on either that's your blogging or maybe even YouTube channel, or that's connecting with people on LinkedIn, like whatever it is. I think that that's where you will see like more benefits. But again, like I have friends in Serbia who there's actually one friend who we finished the Academy of Arts together, and he posted like his gig or whatever. I don't even know exactly how it goes like on Upwork. So he like posted his profile, and the company hired him full time. And then, he was able to travel and work for this company like full time, 9 to 5 freelancer. I don't even know if that's a thing, but you know what I mean? Like he was getting a lot of projects from that one company that found him on one of the third-party platforms.
It sounds similar. Yeah. The few people I've talked to who had success with Upwork similarly gave it a lot of attention. Just like you talked about earlier, it was like focusing on one or two channels, and Upwork was one that they really focused on. You learn how to like position yourself, you learn where the competition is, and you learn how to set your profile up. There's all these ins and outs. Whereas I think if you just set up a profile real quick and just hope to get a lead, it's probably not going to, it's just like anything. Whatever you invest your time and energy to is going to pay off. But if you disperse it too far, you're not going to get very far in all the different things. So that sounds to be the case. Actually, Chris Mistrick, who previously had a podcast called Self-Made Web Designer Podcast, he talks about how Upwork was his biggest thing, and it sounded similar to where he got like a couple big jobs that led to other ones just under the umbrella of Upwork. So it's interesting because there's all these options, and it can be tough deciding what to dive into. Do you have any metrics on that? Like, what have you seen work? I have my own thoughts on this, but I'd love to hear from you, Kady. Like, what do you tell your audience and students, like how to decide what to dive into?
Yeah, so most of the time, my advice is, again, like going back to figuring out who your ideal client is. And I talk about niching and specializing a lot because I think that that's one thing that helped us get to the next level of our business, to the levels where I never even thought we can get to. And that's only because I decided, okay, this is the one type of clients that I want to work with. And this is my dream client. So I really want to work with this type of client. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to exclude the rest, but let's like really nail down who would be like perfect fit and then go from there. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about LinkedIn is what I love about LinkedIn is that you can actually find their emails. You can find people's email addresses on LinkedIn and then reach out to them in their inboxes, which is totally different than being on Upwork and Fiverr.
Good point. Good point. I'm so glad you brought up niching. Well, we say niche in my neck of the woods, niching.
Yeah.
This is probably, it is 100% the hot topic right now that I hear from a lot of my students. Everyone's curious about when to niche, how to niche, all these things. And we've had a lot of episodes talking about this and are going to continue to do more because it's another thing that is like its own little like industry. Like how do you niche? Similarly, what you just said, I really like, and that's my motto is not to necessarily exclude everyone outside your perfect niche. It's just focus on that. And then you'll get some outliers who might be a good thought. But how do you recommend doing that? Do you recommend like just through messaging and case studies and testimonials? Is that how you identify the perfect clients and get them without saying, I don't work with these and these people? Like, what are your tips for niching without, like you said, excluding everybody else?
Yes. So I think about like 4 years ago was when I was so busy. I was getting a lot of clients and I just didn't know, like, how can I get this to the next level in a sense that makes sense where I'm not like, if I want to make more and I don't have the capacity of getting more clients, but then if I'm outsourcing, I'm not making enough. And so I was just like, it was so confusing. So I decided to hire this one marketing agency here in Austin and I told them all my problems and challenges. And I was like, I feel I'm close to not like quitting because that's not me, but I'm so close to like just stopping everything and starting all over. And that's where they told me, I think that that's exactly what you should do. It's very, very hard to stand out if you say that you do brand design, graphic design, brand strategy, web design, web development, like all these services for everyone and anyone who needs them. Like, where do you even start? Where do you even look for clients? What events do you attend? Like, what do you do when you're targeting everyone? So they actually helped me figure out like who I want to work with. And we had to make like 3 different like categories of who would be my dream clients. So we selected, I think it was like health and wellness was the number 1. And then like fashion something because I love high heels and things like that. So I was like, okay, let's work even like on personal interests. Like at the end of the day, we create our businesses and we want to love them. We don't want to get to the levels of like, oh, I really don't like what I do. Why did I even start this? Because of the money? No, that's not a point. So we created like 3 different categories that I personally loved. And then from there, we wrote down what potential clients I could get in those industries. For example, for health and wellness, those could be spas, skincare lines, people who are starting like maybe companies like vitamin supplements, maybe just like yoga studios, fitness studios, like all those like health and wellness. And then fashion, okay, shirts, dresses, like shoes, this and that. And so, once we wrote all of that down, I was like, I would actually love to work with health and wellness businesses. And, it's basically just getting this hobby to the next level, like what is that I would really and truly enjoy? So like helping health and wellness businesses work on their brand with brand strategy, like helping them figure out what their mission, vision, core values are, and then translating that into visuals such as logos, and then maybe packaging and labels, and then websites, just like all these things, when they all come together, this is the niche that I would love. When I started working then on my own brand and like rebranding my branding agency, we didn't do a lot of things. We just changed our messaging on our website and a little bit of social media. So not too much. Like it really doesn't take a lot to niche down. And then I also always had my thoughts in the sense of like, if this doesn't work, I can just go back where I was.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lose anything. I can just go back to where I was, or I can change the niche. You know, it's like, it's not the end. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work.
Yes, I absolutely love that approach. I think you laid out such a great pathway to do that. And there is this like hybrid model between going all in on one niche and only doing websites for like hairstylists versus being a generalist and doing anything for everybody, which I was. I never niched down. I was always a generalist, although I did end up refining my messaging to small and medium-sized businesses, which helped. It got me out of the like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business. I have, $100 to spend. Can I get a website? Like that? Not ideal. So like that helped me. And one thing that I have been telling a lot of my students to do if they're interested in this is to create landing pages for their main target niches, like their ideal industry serve, which is that a part of your strategy as well? I'm kind of curious, like practically, did you have your main services like telling on your website, like what you do and the results you get, and then have like the pathways for people to go to for the different categories? What did that look like practically for you? Because that's generally what I recommend. Like have what you do, the results you get, and then bring them out to the correct journey after that.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing that what I did was, so when I decided to niche down, I was like, okay, how do I do this? Do I now need to like redo my website? And that marketing strategist told me, no, just add the words. So instead of like, we do branding for businesses, we do branding for health and wellness businesses. We just added few words here and there to see if it's going to work. And then of course, when I realized that it's going to work and that I love it, then we decided to completely change the website and colors and all that. But at the beginning, and then as you mentioned, like we literally had like a landing page. I didn't even bother about like about page or, anything like that. I didn't have to change my services. It's the same type of service. It's just I'm being more intentional about who I want to work with. And then even though some designers, let's say web designers, would think that working with health and wellness businesses is so specific, but it's not. It's still very, very broad. At some point I was working with a lot of doctors, then I was working with some hospitals, and then I realized, well, this is actually not what I like. It's kind of boring. It's all like blue, white, gray. I feel like there is no room for creativity. So I was like, well, why do I work with health and wellness? I mean, this is health and wellness, but it's not what I prefer. Or, then we got a lot of spas. And they're all the same. It's always like purple, pink, white, brown. It's the same. So that's when I realized, well, I actually don't want to work with service providers. Let's go even deeper. Let's focus on packaging and designs. Let's work with product-based businesses only. Let's drop the health. Let's work with wellness product-based businesses. And, just like going further and further. And then I realized, then we got a couple of clients that were in skincare lines, so skincare businesses. And I really loved working on those. So I'm like, okay, well, from here we can be wellness and skincare. So you're just changing and playing all the time based on your preferences. So it's not this like one-time thing. You're stuck forever in health and wellness. No, you keep changing it.
Change it. Yeah. And that's such a like relieving message, I'm sure, for everyone to hear that. You don't need to blow up your entire site and change your business model and everything to go niche or try something out. You can 100%, like you said, just add to it. And literally you could take your homepage right now and just copy it over and then just add the industry terms in there, change the colors and change the photos if you need to. And you could have, 3 different landing pages, which often I think a lot of web designers in particular, or just people in general, forget. People are not always going to go to your homepage. They're often going to find the page that has the most details for a service or an answer to a question. So your landing page that is on your website, whether it's in your menu or not, may end up being the page that they see. And that's the sales tool right there. So a lot of great lessons on how to like go niche, practically identify your ideal customer. I have to ask you this. I'm terribly curious about this. How far do you go in like dissuading clients, or not refusing to work with somebody, but like how far would you go? And like, for example, you wanted to stop working with the medical offices. I can't imagine you're going to say absolutely no more medical offices, but how do you do that practically? And did you ever get to a point where you said no or just try to weed them out? Like, I guess the question is, how do you go niche and focus on the right people while really getting away from the type of industries you just don't want to work with without saying, you can't be here kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, it depends. It depends on the person. It depends on the business. So for example, even right now at this moment, as we talk, like 4 years after I decided to niche down, I am working with a lawyer. So he has nothing to do with, it's like attorney practice. And I'm working on, my team is working on their logo, on their website, on their stationery. They have nothing to do with health and wellness, but we really like the people that work for that agency. So we never told them no. Like they saw our website and it's all about now skincare lines. It's all about wellness, self-care, product-based businesses, but they really loved what we do and they decided to contact us. So I never said no to them. But then there was an agency here in Austin, a real estate agency, that they reached out to us and I was like, I'm sorry, we don't specialize in real estate. We focus on the health and wellness side. And it's all good, so it really depends. And that's what I like about specializing. Like you can specialize in one niche, but that doesn't mean you're excluding the rest. It just means that you're intentional about how you're going to find clients. Because tomorrow, if you don't have enough clients, I'm going to think about where are skincare clients, skincare business owners hanging out? Where are they? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they looking for manufacturers? Yes, they are. Okay, let me connect with people who work for different types of like manufacturers. Let's try get referrals through them. Let's go for different networking events where my skincare clients are going to hang out so that I can get clients. It's just like easier and faster way of getting clients when you decide to focus on one type of clients. But again, that doesn't mean you're excluding the rest. It just means that you want to work with them. And also the other thing is like, and I know we talked about it via Instagram about storytelling. When you focus on your ideal client, you know exactly what you need to tell them. You know how to sell them. You know what their pain points are. And I mean, storytelling is basically telling stories that people connect with. And it's content that resonates with your audience. So for example, if you're now talking about like skincare lines, which is like a random example, but like, let's say you have a dry skin and you're looking for a solution. Someone who started a business that has a skincare line, they can talk about how they were looking for a moisturizer, they couldn't find it, and then developed a product because their skin was dry. And so it's walking people from point A to point B. And web developers, web designers can do that the same. Like you're not making enough sales, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Well, let me help you get to this, and they can use the specific words when they're telling stories. And it's the same thing like if they have, let's say, web designers, when they're creating case studies, a lot of designers make this mistake of having portfolio only. So portfolio is where they have just the visuals, and that's all great. But how does that separate you? How does that make you different? That's why storytelling and selling through stories is very important, because the entire concept here is where you walk your clients from point A to point B. You talk about the ideas, you talk maybe even like you put website sketches and wireframing and whatnot. Yeah. And then the next thing, and then you include like one image, a little bit of text, image, text. So you walk them through the whole story of creating that website. And that's like the power of like storytelling and selling. And that's where you can also include your niche. And then, it just gets like to, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, and you said it right there too, which is a really, really important point I want to bring back up. Success stories are very different than the portfolio. Like you could have a portfolio, and I wish somebody would have told me that earlier on, because I had my portfolio page, which had reviews and quote unquote success stories on the portfolio pages, but I never had a success stories page. I had testimonials, but I kind of wish I would have really framed it as like an intentional results-based success story. Or at least I wish I would have at least had like a few of them and added those to the testimonials page and called it success stories, because that is like a new thing. This is a hot tip of the day right here. Success stories and a success style page is huge right now. And I think it's what separates a lot of creatives and designers from others is to showcase results. and not just say, here's my pretty work. Look at this happy client that left a Google review that said, Kady did great. That's not going to help anyone. Like, somebody wants to see results. Like, how did you help grow my business through this branding or through this design or through this website?
Exactly. Yeah. Because clients who are looking for web designers, they're not looking for an amazing web design. They're looking for results that amazing web design is going to, help them get to. Like, if they want to make more sales, if they want to get more clients, like whatever, there is always the end goal. It's not a pretty website. So that's something that we also need to include in the storytelling and in the case studies. So for example, one of our case studies, not one, like all of our case studies start from, this is the challenge or this is the problem our client had, because then the potential clients relate to that and they're like, oh, this is exactly where I am. And then these are the steps. This is what we did. This was the process. This was the timeline. Like, we include like everything in that case study. And then these are the results. This is the testimonial. And this is the real client's website that takes them to the website so that they can check it out. And it's really works.
And I have a 2-part question for you on case studies, because now the question is, like, this sounds great. I would love to have a success page with like 5 or 10 success stories. Maybe, you don't need that many, probably 2 or 3, I'm sure would go plenty far. I don't know how many clients are going to read past 3, but the question is, how do you practically do this? Like, how do you practically do a case study? Do you do a Zoom call and just record it? Do you do an intentional questionnaire? And also a follow-up question to this is when? Because if you're going to get results, you need to let the website go for a while. So 2-part question for you, Kady. How and when do you do a case study?
Yeah. To answer the first part on how, basically we would write content on our own. So I have a content developer here in my team, and we would write content for our case study, like for our portfolio, where it says, this is who the client was, this is what we did, this is how long it took, like all those good stuff. And then we would send that to the client and ask them, does this sound accurate? Can we post this? What do you think about it? But also at that point, like, our clients are already like became our friends. We've been working with them for like 3 months, 6 months, whatever. It doesn't matter like how long the project was, but we already became like really close to them, that now we can literally say like, hey, we would love to include you on our website. Would this work for you?
So it's kind of, I don't mean to cut you off. It's kind of like a project breakdown blog. Is that kind of how?
Yes, exactly. Yes. And so, we ask them, do you think this is okay? Can we use this? And when they say yes, we put just that. And then we wait 3 to 6 months after they have some results, after we know that they're making sales, after we know that they're getting more clients or whatever the real end goal is. And then we reach out to them asking for testimonials. So we don't ask for testimonial right after the project is done, because then we'll get a general testimonial. Oh, it was really great working with you. Okay, cool. But, what is the next step? So then we ask, did you make more sales? And we already know that because you're always in contact with them. I really try to stay on top of mind. Even though we are completing something with one client, we know that person is connected with other potential clients. So we're always like really in contact with our past or current clients. And so, we wait 3 to 6 months to ask them about the results. And usually those are great results, like they're making more sales, getting more customers, whatever it is. And then we include that in our case study. We just go back and edit it.
That's great. Now, my process is very similar, except it differs in one aspect, and that would be that I actually do request for a testimonial right after a project is done, simply because I like to strike while the iron is hot when somebody's fired up about their stuff. So yes, the testimonial will generally be a little more general, but it kind of gives a lot of testimonials, especially if it's a Google review. However, I do recommend following up with your plan with the case study. So I view a testimonial different than a case study.
Yes, but I also I also do give the same advice for my students to sometimes ask for the testimonial immediately, because sometimes we can create the best website ever, but if they don't do anything after that, if they don't focus on marketing, if they don't post on social media, if they don't try to sell, then it's not our fault that they're not making sales, Yeah. So it really depends on what the client is, who they are, what you completed for them, and things like that. So I think that either asking for testimonial right after that, when they're still like super happy, satisfied, they just got this website, like it's great. But then also like maybe following up in like 3 to 6 months, asking for either another testimonial, but calling it a little bit differently. Like, hey, we just want to check in.
And that would probably be good for clients who are doing well with their website. Like in the case of a client who you made a great website for, but they're just not utilizing it 6 months later, unfortunately, no fault of your own, even if you gave them empowering resources with how to do it, then you may not even necessarily want a case study from them because they're not doing a great job. So you want to, which is why it's kind of cool. Like case studies are few and far between. You don't need to do them for every client, just the good ones as benchmarks. So yeah, I love this idea. It's extra clear to me now and kind of backs up why I recommend get a testimonial for as many people as you can initially. Because those do go a long way and you can share it on a portfolio page on social media and stuff. That's going to gain interest. But follow up with that case study because the case studies are the results. At the end of the day, the results are what's going to really sell you in the long term. So I'm glad that I feel like we came up to a nice little system here, Kady, with how to really flesh this out.
Exactly. I also want to mention that, so we worked with more than 200 clients, but we have, I think, only 7 case studies in our portfolio. First of all, nobody's going to look into more than like 2 or 3. Like nobody's going to look even into those 7. But those 7 are the most powerful because I think that it's also important for designers not to overshare. Sometimes they feel like, oh, I want to put all my work. And then there are 300 landing pages and people are confused. People don't know, I don't know, this is too much. And then they go to another website, website designer, and they see 7 amazing, perfectly done. I mean, not perfectly, nothing's ever perfect, but like,
that's also the benefit of niching. Like you could do a categorized portfolio depending on the niche. So like for you, you may have health and wellness recent work or featured work. You may have whatever, like any category that you want to have. And like you may have your heels or fashion, fashion recent work from fashion. Like, you know what I mean? That's the other benefit of you could have a lot of portfolio items, but if you're going to do that, they have to be categorized. Otherwise, you're totally right, Kady. Clients are not going to go to a portfolio page and look through 100 websites, except I did have one client who literally sent me an email. I couldn't read it all. It was a small book. I think she went through like 25 projects and just laid out all her thoughts on each one and what she liked and what she didn't. I'm like, I am not going to read all this. I'm like, I mean, I appreciate being thorough, but good God, like how long did this take? So that's, that's going to be
those
rare.
are usually the clients who have more time than money. So are those really clients you want to have?
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, what a great point though. And the other thing I want to mention in here that I think will really help with this, we're kind of looking at the window of when you launch a project, getting a testimonial, then following up with the results. The other missing piece here that I think I've seen help myself and a lot of other designers is to have some sort of like launch pack that will give clients the push and resources to share their website and to share and like to know how to utilize it. Because most clients are just not going to know what to do with their website. Do you have anything like that that's in your programs or anything that you've seen work well as far as like empowering clients to use their website, which inevitably leads to referrals and sells you and you don't even need to do anything?
Yeah, exactly. So we actually have, my signature offer when we work with, when we get a potential client is in 5 phases. So the first phase is brand strategy. Second phase is visual identity. Third one is graphic design, which is labels and packaging. That's how we call it. And then fourth phase is website design. And then fifth phase is where we send them to other people. So we do have a network of people who help them with, we have a photographer, amazing photographer, if they have products, which is now my focus, right? So we have to have like a photographer. She's not like on staff, but people hire us because they know that then we have a network of these people they're going to need right after us. So we have a photographer, we have an amazing social media manager. So that's, that's how we empower them to then use their website and share it and so on. Then we also have an amazing person who does Google ads. So that's kind of like the phase 5 that we don't have anything with. And we're not making money off of it. We are not taking any cuts or referral. fees or whatever it is. Like we just send them to our partners, and our clients love that.
That is a really cool thing. You are the first I've ever heard this concept of. I mean, in a way I did this having a networking group because I would let them know, like, if you need help in any other areas, just let me know. I'll connect you with somebody. But this is such a better, like, professional approach that's intentional, that says, okay, now that we're done, if you want to do these extra things that we don't do, here's our network. That is so valuable. I would still recommend folks do a launch pack of some sort, which for me would just be like graphics of like, you know, here's a couple Instagram size posts.
We do have that. We do have that. We send them. It's like a photography style guide where I think we designed like 10 Instagram posts as examples. So these are examples that you can post. Feel free to use these 10, but this is something that you can then forward to your future graphic designer who you're going to hire either as a contractor or part-time or social media manager or whatever it is. But we send them like examples.
Perfect.
This is how now you can continue working on your marketing, because we are branding and design agency. We don't provide marketing, and that's just not what I would like to do.
but I love what you have set up there, because then it's like, even if you give them a launch pack, they still may not do anything with it. So how beneficial to say, okay, here's my marketing folks. Here's, you know, my SEO guy. Here's my social media gal. Like here's the people that we work with and recommend if you would like to use them. Oh, that's genius.
And then the other thing is that, so for example, I think it was last year where a photographer that I always send my clients to, she called me and she's like, so I have this client, they have amazing products, but their packaging sucks. Like, it's so bad. I can't make good photos. Like, it's really not working. I think that they need to go to you first. So it's not just like me sending clients to them, but I'm also getting clients from them. So it works like both ways.
That's networking 101, right? You help people grow their business and connect with people, they will send you work. And then they end up often knowing like really good clients, because if you send them really good clients, that's the way it works. This is such a good, I'm so glad we're having this conversation right now, because in a world where so many people ask me in particular, how do I get clients? How do I get clients? How do I get clients? This is it. Like, there is nothing magical or revolutionary about this. Like, there's all these different strategies you can employ. There's different places where you can get clients, like we've already kind of talked about, in person, online, forums, social media.
I mean, I think that everything works. Every single social media platform and every connection, like everything works. It's just a matter of like what you want to focus on and who your ideal client is and what you're good at, what you want to become a better at. Like either that's, LinkedIn, social media, Instagram, or in person, or building that referral partnerships, which was for me huge. And that's, I found all these people. I think I found them on LinkedIn, because then on LinkedIn, you can put all these like search, like amazing like filters where you put the location, you put their profession and like whatnot. And then from there, you can filter them. Yeah,
that is cool. And oh my gosh, the few times I've logged into LinkedIn over the past couple of years, it's definitely like, oh, I've been targeted. Which, again, does have its benefit if you want to connect in a genuine way. So, so cool. I would love to get your thoughts and insight on the economy today, like globally, because we are in a bit of a recession and a lot of people are apprehensive. But I'll tell you this, like, that has not stopped a lot of my students from killing it and crushing it. But it is just a matter of not letting that like stop them and just keeping momentum going and serving more and educating more. What are the things that have you seen help people, like in the wake of a recession, whatever it looks like, whenever somebody's hearing or watching this? Like, what do you recommend people do in downtimes, especially economically?
Yeah, well, in downtimes, I always recommend improving your own stuff. So like working on your business, maybe restructuring your offers. Not everyone needs a 15, 25, 30K website design. Like maybe someone needs just a simple template, maybe a project in a day, like maybe that's $1,000, $1,500, like whatever it is, until they get to the next level, and they're going to come back to you, so it's not always about like, oh, I need to land these like high ticket clients. Like maybe you can have a lead offer and then from there get them to the next level when they're ready, so I think that's usually like my advice, like just figure out, like restructure things. But again, as you mentioned, like some of your students are killing it. Like we don't have we don't have that problem. Like, even like last month, like my husband mentioned something, recession. I'm like, oh yeah, we are in that.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, I do remember that we are in that when I go to grocery store, but when it comes to my business, like I don't really notice it. And also I think that, this year we were really focused on doubling down on the blog and like reaching out to people. So I think that we are not seeing that because maybe we are putting more effort. So I think that that's, another thing. Cold emailing works really well, even though in the past, I have to be honest with you, I was like really against it. I was like, oh my God,
I am against it. So I want to hear this. I want to hear, convert me, Kady, convert me to the dark side of cold emailing. Let's dive into that if you're down.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I'll give you a few examples of how I hired people and how I was hired because of cold emailing. So there was a guy, I think like a year and a half ago, he sent us an email, and we get these emails like all the time, right? Like all the time. And I don't even know what his title was. It was something catchy that I opened it, right? And he said that he's a blogger. He writes on these certain topics. So he really puts efforts into knowing me and knowing my website. So it was like very targeted and very specific. And I was like, oh, he actually was on my website, and it wasn't dearaventivstudio.com.
And it wasn't copy and pasted with your business name. I get so many of those. I'm like, I can tell you literally just copy and pasted this.
Exactly. Yeah. And he even told me it was a template, but he knew what words to change. And It worked really great, where he said, I'm going to write, 200 words for you for free or something like that. I was like, okay, whatever. Let's test this out. And what he wrote was amazing, that I was like, yes, I'll pay you. Let's do one blog post. This is the topic. And he nailed it. It was amazing. He's been now working for us for a year and a half. Like full time. He's the best blogger I've ever seen. Like he's really good. Sometimes he would send me a blog. Usually he sends the blog back, and then Kelsey, my manager, she would take it and post it. So I most of the time don't do anything with it. But like every time when I see an email from him, I open it because I am learning.
How about that?
Even though he's talking about the topics that I should be talking about, but I always learn more about branding and website designs and whatnot. He's so, so good. So that's one story, like how I hired based on the cold email. I also hired my web designer based on the cold email and my graphic designer. So they're all coming, through cold emailing. Instead of me looking for them, they're looking for me, I guess. And when it comes to cold emailing, how we got a lot of skincare clients is because we connected with manufacturers. So basically, I went on Fiverr and I paid $5 to get 100 email addresses from different manufacturers here in the States. So someone, I think it's like India or Bangladesh or something, like they sent, that's good amount, like, or at least that's what they asked for, right? For $5, I got 100 contacts, and then used the copy paste. Of course, it wasn't like me manually doing it. It was someone who I hired to reach out to all these manufacturers and set up calls. So I had calls with people who are sales in their sales team for manufacturers. So those are the people. I know this is getting like too complex, but
no,
it was
this
like
is
very
great.
intentional.
Everyone here we love the detail. Like we want a peek behind the curtain. We want to see how the sausage is made.
So I connected with people who work for manufacturers that are usually on the sales side. So those are the people who directly work with my target. And then I was like, okay, let's see how we can send referrals back and forth. And I made that connection. So it wasn't cold emailing to my ideal client. It was cold emailing to my potential referral partners.
Gotcha.
And then every time when they would get someone like, hey, I'm trying to start, natural skincare line. Do you have these ingredients, this and that? And when they ask, like, where are you in your process? Well, it's still just an idea. Okay, well, you need to talk to Kady about like branding and setting all that up. And then, we are the next step, but they want to know if that's the right manufacturer for them. So that's how we get referrals and get clients through them. But that's cold emailing.
Interesting. This is great. I'm learning so much in this just because it's a tactic that I tried and hated. And I don't personally know anyone until I met you who has really, at least to my knowledge, done well using cold emailing. But it is interesting because you can use templates for sure. And I use templates for a lot of my repeated emails, like for when some of my students, when they join like all my courses, I'll send a email and a personal quick video. That is a template, but I just swap out the name and try to personalize where I can. So I imagine it's that same approach, but I'm kind of curious, what are some of the other conversion tips for cold emailing? Like, is it the subject line? Is it the first couple sentences? And also, what about personal videos? Or like the only cold email I can remember that really actually got me interested, I ended up not moving forward with the service because I had no idea what they did in the long run. But they did get me initially because they had a picture, or they had a video, like a GIF that was just going through, and it was of my social media, and it was actual personal video that was like, "Hey, Josh, I'm such and such from this marketing agency." That they did like get me through the door. Is it those kind of things that can work as well, or what are the things that have worked with cold email? Yeah.
So what worked really well to me is the title is always about your client. It's nothing fancy, nothing, like when I'm reaching out to my potential, partners, referral partners, it's always about your clients. They always open it because it's about their client, right? So they're like curious. Oh, what about my client? Oh, well, it's about my future potential client. So it's not that I trick them, but it's like really a catchy title. And then from there, I usually have, so the first sentence is usually very personal, but very easy to find it. So usually I go to their, not me, but a person who's on my team who does that. She would go to a LinkedIn and then find the first, a couple of sentences. What is that they focus on? What do they mention? Do they have kids? This and that, like whatever it is. Just so the first sentence is always personal. And then from there, we work with the same target audience. I see how we can be amazing referral partners. And now I always mention our success and I literally just had to open that document now in front of me because I would forget all the logos. But what we do is we always mention that we helped our clients get into stores such as CVS, Walgreens, Amazon, ABC, DoorDash, even Shark Tank. And when they see that, they're like, oh, this is a really cool branding agency that can send me amazing clients, but I can also send them. And then it goes from there. Here are some case studies. I send them to my website. Here's testimonials. So they have every single thing in that one email. It's not too personal, but they see me. I position myself as an expert, as someone who works with amazing clients and has amazing results for my clients. And then, from there, they respond. We set up a call and see how we can work together. And for example, even just like few months ago, last month, I sent one of my clients to one of the people that I reached out to because I knew that they have amazing products and amazing ingredients, and it's exactly what my skincare client was looking for. So it's not, it just, again, it goes back to who you know and how you build that relationship.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, you've made definitely a believer, or at least a cautiously optimistic believer on cold email marketing with the framework. And it's proven, like, obviously you're doing it and it's working, but it's definitely very strategic, very intentional. And I imagine you repeat and templatize as much as you can, but you don't, like, it's so clear when there is like an obvious template that sometimes, like, I've had people get my name wrong. They'd be like, "Hey, Jeremy, I love your pot," and I'm like, they didn't even call me the right name. Of course, like, nope, delete. So
yeah, it's funny. Like, my name is originally my name is Ksenia, and I go by Kady. But here, I guess like K and L is like really close. So I always get, "Hey, lady."
Oh, really? Well, thank God you didn't go by your Serbian name, because I would not have been able to pronounce that probably.
I know.
But that's funny. I don't know how many people I get. That's funny. I guess I wouldn't think that, but that's funny.
Yeah,
hey, lady.
Yeah, but also when it comes to cold emailing, I want to like really emphasize this, that we don't pitch to our target audience. And I think that that's what why a lot of people don't see any success in cold emailing or don't like it, because they think that now they have to like find their audience and then pitch to them and try to sell. And it's really not about that. It's just about building relationships with others who have your target audience.
So that's the big differentiator there. That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up.
I would not like to find the skincare line and then send them a cold email. I don't even know what I would say.
But the blogger and the designer and the folks you have hired, they did do direct, didn't they? And it still worked.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah. So it can,
exactly.
it can
but
work.
I feel like, it can work, but I also feel it was probably the right message at the right time when we were already thinking about getting our blog to the next level, because our SEO is really working. So I think it was also, there's so many factors that go into like any marketing strategy.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The right time of that kind of thing is crucial. So I would say for anybody marketing in any way, I recommend not taking it personally. Even if somebody's a really good fit and you thought for sure they'd go for it, sometimes it's just not the right time. I experienced this when I went into a business coaching program years ago. I originally met with a guy who was in my network, and he was a really nice guy. And I could tell he really wanted me to join the program. I'm sure because he got a good commission out of it too. But it just wasn't the right time for me quite yet. And then another guy that I had met who eventually joined my networking group, I did join the program then. And he kind of asked me, he's like, so what made you join now? I think he was probably like, why the heck didn't you join last year? And I told him it wasn't the right time. Like, I'm ready for this now. So that is a big point to sales, whether it's cold emailing or any type of sales. So
yeah, it is. I mean, even when it comes to like online courses or programs or, whatever. Like I remember following this one girl for like about 2 years, and then I decided to enroll in her course. And I do have clients who tell me like, oh, I was following you for a year. I was looking for investors and so on. And then I knew I would work with you, but it just wasn't the right time. And so I feel that, again, it goes back to like, when is the right timing for people to really invest in their website design or whatever it is.
And that, I think, goes back to the idea of just staying top of mind for when that time is right. Even if they're not engaging with your post, they're seeing your stuff. And when the time is right, when they need a website, they're likely go with you if you're top of mind, or they'll likely schedule a consultation or take the next steps. Yeah, same thing for me. Like, I can't tell you how many students I have join my courses or my membership and say, I've been following you for like a year and a half, and I finally felt like this was the time to do it. So it's a good reminder too. Stay present, stay top of mind. Sometimes it's a long game depending on the waves of incoming clients and stuff, which does tend to even out, I found. But staying top of mind is key, because you're not always going to get everybody right away. I had to learn this when I had course launches. It was like, all right, my SEO course is out. And then if people didn't buy it, part of me was like, this is so important. Like, you should know what I'm sharing here. It's really, really beneficial. But I had to remind myself, it's beneficial for a lot of people when they're ready. But I don't want to force somebody to dive into this if they're not fully committed or not ready. And I think that's the same mindset to have with clients too. Yeah,
and it takes time to build a trust. They're putting a lot of money into it, especially like when it comes to website design and development. Sometimes that's $10,000, sometimes that's $50,000. Like, so they have to be very intentional about their investments, about growing their business. So, maybe today is not the right time. Maybe they're looking for, after Black Friday, after they make more sales, then they will have more cash flow or whatever it is, so it really depends.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, Kady, man, what a fun chat. This really, I'm kind of glad we didn't have an exact topic in mind when you reached out. We were connected through the Designer Boss Summit that we were both a part of, and I checked your stuff out. And I mean, it wasn't a cold reach out, but you just said, hey, I'm a speaker as well. And I've done that as well with Summit speakers, because generally we all have similar businesses or similar audiences. And I loved your stuff, and I loved your approach. So I knew we were going to have a good chat. And I like that we kind of left it open-ended, because we really did cover a lot of really cool stuff about networking, about building your personal network, both in person, online, sales strategies, getting clients, attracting the right type of people. Perhaps my favorite of everything was getting into the cold email marketing, because that's just not an approach that I liked, but that it was really eye-opening. And of course, we talked about niching and a lot of great stuff here. So I really enjoyed this chat. I want to ask you one final question. Before we get to that though, Kady, where would you like people to go after this? I know you have a podcast, but you got some other stuff. Yeah, where would you like us to send everybody?
Yeah, they can find me on @Aventive Academy. That's the online platform that we use for educating graphic brand and web designers on how they can grow their business, raise their rates, get more, and not just more, but better clients, and scale to the levels of agencies and so on. So I think that Instagram is the best place to reach out to me. Also, they can go to aventiveacademy.com, read our blogs, find our programs, courses, and so on.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, we'll have all that linked in the show notes as well. Cause I love what you're up to. And I foresee many future conversations with you if you're down, cause I really love your style and what a cool story. Yeah. I'm just thrilled that you have going on. My final question is real quick. Of all the topics that we talked about, cold emailing, niching, networking, social media, if anything we covered today, is there one particular avenue that you feel like is untapped or has a lot of potential that a lot of people aren't going for right now?
No, I think that we covered everything. I think that we covered a little bit of everything. Of course, we can go into details of every single topic, but I think that we covered everything. It's just know who you want to work with, have your dream clients. Don't be afraid of niching down because you can always change it, and you can have a lot of hobbies. It doesn't have to be business related. People are always like, oh, what if I niche down into this one industry and then I'm losing this or that? Well, that can be your hobby, or you can find them differently, or they can have different landing pages, how you said. So I think that's kind of like a wrap. Just know who you want to work with and go from there.
Beautiful way to end this conversation, Kady. Thank you so much for your time for the first chat of many, I think, because I would love to pick your brain more about some of this stuff and a lot of other topics. So thanks so much for joining, and we'll definitely stay in touch here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I would love to host you now on my podcast.
I was going to ask you after we stopped recording. So thank you for not making me ask. Yeah, I was looking at your podcast. I was like, wow, I feel like I would love to chat with you about some of that stuff. So let's do it. Count me in.
Perfect. Yeah, well, thank you so much for the call. This was amazing.
All right. Thanks for your time, Kady. Hey, friends, it's Josh here. I just wanted to mention a couple quick things before you head out. First off, if you've been enjoying the show, please consider leaving a podcast review. I personally read all the podcast reviews. I love hearing your thoughts and feedback on the show, and it also really helps grow this podcast. You can do that easily if you go to joshhall.co/podcast review, and you can leave a review wherever you listen to the show. And then I also wanted to make sure you know that for all the extras on every one of these podcast episodes, you can go to joshhall.co/podcast. We have a post there for every episode, which includes full transcriptions, timestamps, and all the links and resources that we mentioned. So just go to joshhall.co/podcast for all the extra goodies. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode.